So this kind of ties in with the Alive quote by Howard Thurman, right? Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs is for more people to come alive, right? So
Wow.
how do you come more alive?
Welcome to the 4-Day Workweek Entrepreneur Podcast. My man Jeff Harry with me today. We're going to talk about how we can help you make more money in less time, doing the things you do best, while you play your way to fun and enjoy your work, your life, and everything about it. So I'm pleased today, so honored to have on Jeff Harry. And Jeff is awesome energy, awesome dude. We've connected on a lot of things, and he helps people rediscover their childlike qualities, their play, and bring that in their work to do awesome things. And I'm going to read your bio in a little bit, but I want to just start with that. And so, dude, welcome. Thanks for coming out, and thank you for being here.
Wade, you do not understand how amazing. I don't think your listeners realize that's Wade. That is Wade. He didn't hire somebody. That's Wade. And then there's Naples, Florida Wade, but there's also Trini Wade. And it's so amazing because I'm half Caribbean, like to hear this because it's so accurate. It's just utterly amazing. Yeah.
That's right.
So I'm so happy.
I forgot, not everybody's watching the video of this. So those of you on the video saw me do this on the audio. That's me. So the original entry or intro, that is me. I'm Trinidadian by birth, parents. Some of my Trinidadian friends think it's a horrible attempt at a Trinidadian accent. It was meant to be Trinidadian, but I had to make it a little more Jamaican because the Trinidadians talk a little more slow and you can't understand what you're saying when you're talking kind of fast. So I had to kind of slow it down a little bit and make sure people could understand it because it would make sense. So yeah. All right. So Jeff Harry shows individuals and companies how to tap into their true selves to feel their happiest and most fulfilled, all by playing. He's worked with Google, Microsoft, Southwest Airlines, Adobe, the NFL, Amazon, and Facebook, helping their staff to infuse more play into the day-to-day. And that's one of the main reasons why he's excited, because this is just not, he's not out there. This is real stuff he's doing and bringing in some insights that people aren't normally having. Jeff's an international speaker who's presented at conferences such as Inbound, SXSW, and Australia's Pausefest, showing audiences how major issues in the workplace can be solved using play. He was selected by Engagedly as one of the top 100 HR influencers of 2020 and one of the top HR influencers to watch by Bamboo HR for his organizational development work around addressing toxicity in the workplace. His play work has been most recently featured in the New York Times article, How to Add More Play to Your Grown-Up Life Even Now. And his work has been also seen on AJ+, Soul Pancake, the SF Chronicle, and CNN. While we spend most of our time pretending to be important, serious grown-ups, oh gosh, yes. It's when we let go of that facade and just play that the real magic happens. Fully embracing your own nerdy genius, whatever that is, gives you the power to make a difference and change lives. Jeff believes we already have many of the answers we seek, and by simply unleashing our inner child, we can find our purpose and in turn, help to create a better world. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
One of the things that I asked you about was, what is it that you do? Because of course, a lot of people can see the bow tie. For those of you all who are listening to the podcast, Jeff's wearing a stellar bow tie right now. And people can sometimes, when they hear, oh, this is one of those consultants or coaches that's going to tell us to play and blah, blah, blah. Right. And when I asked you, what would you want to talk about? You said you want to help people find their flow and really engage play more so that they can enjoy life more, enjoy what they're doing more. How do you help people do that? And how did you get started with that? Where did this all come from?
Sure. So I'll start there. I saw the movie Big when I was in 3rd grade with Tom Hanks. And in that movie, he is playing with toys for a living. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. That's a given. So I started writing toy companies in 5th grade, and I just didn't stop. I was spamming toy companies with my word processor letters before spamming was a thing. I think they thought I was a grown adult instead of a child because I would keep sending them these 6-page letters, and it eventually led me to work for the toy industry, and I hated it. And it's, like, have you ever pursued something and got something that you thought you wanted, like you got the result that you wanted, only to be disappointed because it wasn't anything of what you thought it would be, right? So I had that where, you know, the toy industry was not play, it was not fun. You know, they might as well have been selling microwaves, you know, for all intensive purposes. So I left New York where I was, came to the Bay Area, and I bumped into an organization that only had 7 staffers, but they were teaching kids engineering with Lego. And I basically helped them grow their business to like 400 people. And we grew one of the largest Lego STEM education organizations like in the country.
Oh,
But
wow.
we did it all by playing, by just kind of making it up as we went along. No business plan. We pick cities that we thought were fun. We'd be like New York, definitely. Austin, yes. Boise, maybe later. You know, Boise apparently is a little bit better now. But you know, like, we were just making it up, and we'd meet all these other entrepreneurs or businesses that were doing the same. So we got the attention of Silicon Valley because our organization was getting so big and we were in the Bay Area, and they'd be like, hey, do you do team building events? And be like, yeah, of course we didn't, but we just say yes to whatever. We'll figure it out as we, as we go along. And I realized as I was running a lot of these sessions for them, they wanted creativity, they wanted collaboration, they wanted connection, but they weren't willing to address the hard questions to do it, right? Like, how do you create a safe space where people can take risks? How do you create a less toxic workspace? How do you create a more inclusive workplace? How does inner critic, play into this? How do you cut through all the office politic BS that's there? Because like the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting. So I created Rediscover Your Play as a way to tackle really important issues in the workplace using play.
That's awesome. And it's funny you say that. You talk about the meeting before the meeting after the meeting. I'm having flashbacks, and I have worked at good companies. I love them all where I worked. I'm blessed where I've worked before I became an entrepreneur, but just all the other stuff. And the other thing is, I look at my entrepreneurial journey, and I made it up as I went along. And I was just talking with a friend who's going to be on another episode, and we were talking about this idea that we sometimes look for what it's supposed to look like. And even crazier, some of us that are, by many other people's standards, very successful. We're entrepreneurs, we're doing our own thing, we have our own business, still look at other people and say, well, no, but wait, I'm supposed to do it this way. It's supposed to look a certain way. And like you said, that adult or that inner critic comes out. And part of you almost wants to say, wait, are you serious? I've worked my tail off for this, or it's something unique. And then if you're not careful, your friends can hear you like, wait, you're serious? You work from home. You've been an entrepreneur 20 years. You're doing what you want on Fridays. Are you not grateful? And it's because it's not a grateful thing. It's not a gratitude thing. It's generally this self-doubt, like, okay, am I not doing this well enough? And meanwhile, other people are looking at you like, yeah, you're rocking it. What are you doing next? You're like, well, I don't know. And yet I got here by not knowing. I got here by being open and intuition, trusting the universe, trusting God. I believe there's a God, not selling it. You don't have to. I believe things kind of randomly happen, and they can happen in a beautiful way if you're open. And there's just so much to that I see that a lot of people are forgetting. And especially when things get fearful, like with COVID or different things going on, people kind of pull back in. It's like, no. This is exactly when we need you to be more open and more willing to see things in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Preach, Wade, preach. No, this is like, it's the play-oriented growth mindset, right? Because when you have the fixed mindset, you are constantly focused on one result. And the reason why so many people have been disappointed with a lot of 2020, separate from, the politics and everything like that, like a lot of people have been disappointed about what they thought 2020 was going to be for them and what actually became, right? So how many of your listeners thought 2020 was going to be my year? I was going to get married this year. I'm going to open my business this year. I'm going to travel the world this year. I'm going to speak at 50 different conferences. Like, I keep hearing this story over and over again, and they haven't let go. of
Oh, you're
that
right.
expectation. And expectations are the thief of joy, right? So as long as you aren't allowing yourself to let go that fixed mindset, you are destroying any possibility of being present in the moment, playing in the moment, and then seeing all of the opportunities that are in front of you, right? And I get it. Like, people are like, what do you mean I should be playing during these uncertain times? It's just like, this is how kids operate. They're much more resilient because when they fall down, they just get up again. They're just like, this is not that big of a deal. You know, while we like analyze it, right? You know, like, imagine if a kid analyzed walking when they fell down. Oh, why did I fall down? Was it this car? You know, was it this sock that I slipped on? I don't know if I should get up again. You know, they just get back up, dude, and just do it. And we, on the other hand, are like, we are so obsessed with both results and trying to impress people that frankly we won't care about in a year. And it's just like, what are we doing trying to do that, right? Especially, you know, I don't know. I was running this calculation recently. Like, most people are working 50-hour work weeks. They're working 50 weeks a year. That's 2,500 hours at work. You know, there's only 8,760 hours in a year total. So like what is it? 1/4 of your time, maybe more, is taken up at work. And it's just like, dude, imagine if you just worked 4 days a week and you got the same amount of work done. Like, yeah, what are we doing that we are focused on trying to impress somebody that doesn't even have the same values as us, instead of just focusing on the work that we believe and doing it our way because it feels right to us?
Yeah, and I think that's so huge because, well, a few reasons. One, the old saying, you know, if you can count on your hands that you have five good, true friends, you know,
Mm,
that's a big deal, or a group or a tribe of people. And so much of whether it's the social media or anything else, not to blame it, but it leads us to quantify things, to measure things. And
mm-hmm.
certainly quantification can be good when you say, hey, you're working 2,500 hours a year. What if you did less or worked less? Could you still get the same result income
Right.
wise in less time? Could you still achieve the same result? Yeah, I think that's where numbers definitely serve us, but they're a tool.
Right.
And you know, you just said a couple things about, you know, expectations being the thief of joy, and I'd never heard it said that way, but that's so true. And as somebody who's, again, parents are from Trinidad and Tobago, wife is from Peru, I've been blessed to grow up in the United States culture and in different cultures. I've lived in Peru. I've seen a lot of different things. I've traveled to India and have enough of a perspective, at least to understand I'm ridiculously blessed financially, abundance
Mm-hmm.
wise, infrastructure, safety, all those things. And this is where a lot of people, I think, make a mistake with this. They say, okay, therefore, Wade, you should be grateful. And it becomes this almost shame thing, or you're
Right.
ingrateful if not, or God gave you
Right.
this and you did. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, because then again, the critic comes in once again. It's like, no, hold on.
Yep.
Let's just look at it from a different angle. Wade, if you, or in most of, or maybe not most of my audience, but a lot of my audience, if you can even be listening to this, you're, at least from a certain standpoint, more abundant than many people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're open to this, you're probably creatively more abundant or open-minded. And to say, look, if you're expecting that something new is going to come in and that thing's going to make you happier, that's a tough one, because that's when you and I might look at somebody who's making, like, I don't know, a movie star or an NBA star or an exec that's making 10 million a year and say, well, I don't
Yep.
make 10 million a year or 50 million a year, whatever it is. But somewhere there's somebody else saying, wait, that person has a house and clothing and
Yep.
running water and shelter, and we're still happy, but they're not happy. That's kind of weird. And I know, without
Right.
going too deep, Mother Teresa talked about, you know, the spiritual poverty of the Western world, and at times of just people being so consumed with the physical and the material and the intellectual and the judging, as opposed to bringing in the heart and the spirit and leaving those out. And I think so
Right.
much of this is a journey of us. It's not a battle. It's a journey of, can we tap into our body, our heart, our mind, and our spirit? Yes, we don't want to lose our mind and say, oh, we're just going to go play and not do anything. We're just going to work 4 days and hope
Right.
stuff happens. No, we're still going to tap into the left brain, if you want to word it that way, or the you know, the intellectual dimension, the physical dimension, getting stuff done. Yes, has to be done. has to, I mean, you can't just go and wear a cute bow tie and if nothing happens, people aren't going to keep paying you. So there has to be an anchor to that. But to your point about the play, I just see it from coming from a coaching standpoint. So much of coaching is about removing obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
And the premise of coaching is that most people, assuming they don't have some diagnosis psychologically, or they're not, which sometimes happens, but that most people are healthy, but they have obstacles. We have to help them remove their obstacles. And if we can do that, they'll excel. And what I'm hearing you say is so much of this play is just getting out of our head, kind of like an athlete. Stop thinking about your free throws and just shoot your free throws. Stop thinking about, obsessing about, flow with the game. The best athletes, people talk about, well, they were just flowing. Michael Jordan, he was just doing this.
Exactly.
And the guy came here and he just did this and he wasn't thinking it. How does that happen? And how can you tell when somebody's stuck with that? And what does it look like when the lights start to turn on for them? And how does that play out for them?
So, that's a great question. So there's so much in there, right? There's first the idea of recognizing that the journey is going to provide you fulfillment, like lifelong fulfillment, right? But the result is only going to provide you fleeting happiness. So it's only going to be temporary. So, and tying back into what you said of the spiritual, like lacking, right? I refer to it as affluent deadness. I know a lot of rich people. I know a lot of millionaires. Not that happy, just not that happy. And I mean, these are people that could travel the world 10 times over, that have anything and can have anything they want. And they are not that happy. And if you think about them, well, I see them on Instagram posting and they look happy there. It's just like, yeah, I've talked to them after they do that post. Not very happy. And it's because they either are comparing themselves to other people that have more money than them, right? Or they're hoarding all of their resources and they're so worried someone's going to steal it. Or the third and most mind-boggling is they're bored, but not bored in the good way, just bored like, I thought I would have more joy and fulfillment when I got here, and it's just not that very exciting of a place. So you have this group that is not happy, promoting that they are when they aren't, and then you have all these other people that are like, I got to get up there, and it's just like, once you get up there, dude, it's not the glorious playground that you thought it would be, right? They've even done studies that whether you make $75,000 a year or $1 million a year, happiness levels are basically similar, right? So then tying into what you asked for is how do you get people in the state of flow, right? We first have to break down what flow is, right? Let me first define play. Play is any joyful act you do where you're fully present in the moment, where you've fallen in love with the process, where you forget about time, right? No anxiety about the future, no regrets about the past, fully in the moment. And when that happens, then you get into a state of flow and you know it because you don't, like, hours pass and you don't even know what you were doing. And there's certain types of work, Marcus Buckingham refers to it as red thread work or zone of genius work, as Gay Hendricks says, but it's the work where you are fully in your own genius. You're fully creative. And the doctor of flow, Dr. Csikszentmihalyi, talks about when you're in a flow state, what's happening is the difficulty of the task meets your skill level perfectly. When the difficulty of the task doesn't meet your skill level, like let's say you don't have a lot of skills in it, a lot of anxiety. When you have a lot of skill, but not a lot of difficulty, very bored, right? That's what happens when you've been in a job for too long. But there's a moment in flow when they meet together and you're reaching your full potential. And then what happens in your brain is your prefrontal cortex that has your inner critic in it. What actually happens when you're in that state of flow is it's what they refer to as transient hypnofrontality, where a part of your prefrontal cortex actually shuts down and your inner critic shuts down. Your implicit mind appears and you start thinking of stuff in a much more creative way, and you start seeing all these opportunities that you couldn't see before, and your brain, the synapses are sparking. And then in addition to that, you become more curious, and then you get this shot of dopamine because it's rewarding you for your curiosity. And then you're just open to what is possible. And when we refer back to what you were saying with the basketball players, time slows down when you're experiencing flow. Your ability to see things opens up, and you almost, again, let go of the results. So even if that basketball player is shooting, they're just enjoying the moment. They're enjoying the present. They don't even know how much they've scored. And by the end, they're like, what happened? They don't even know. And that is the type of work that I'm trying to get people in.
That's awesome. And that's so many things you said, because I do participate in athletic events. Almost call myself an athlete there. No, I'm kidding. I'm getting older. But, there's a certain thing I've told people that I've experienced over the years. And I watch as my son's now picking up sports and my daughter's picking up sports. And they really just want to enjoy the sport.
Exactly.
I remember the first time my son played soccer, he just ran back and forth with the people. He didn't even kick the ball. I mean, he's like 4 years old at the time, but he was happy. He was running with the people. And of course, as he's gotten more, he's learned skills, but then also starts coming into judgment. Oh, the shot didn't go in, these different things. And you get this inhibition. And obviously that's part of life. That's part of maturity. But at the same time, it's to want the shot to go in. But at the same time, there's this sense of, okay, and I think this happens for people. I'm 49 and we kind of joke when we play volleyball, well, nobody got injured.
Yep.
That's a good thing. Your expectations kind of go down a little bit, but we had fun. We got some good exercise, and we more measured of, did we play at a high level? Did we as a group get to experience a high level of this sport, as opposed to, did I win or did I lose? And of course, we all have our egos and we want to win, and everybody wants it to be kind of like, well, it was this really, really great game at the last second. I made the last second shot. Well, you can't have that. If you do the math on that, not everybody can do that all the time, because somebody's going to lose in that. And I don't think that's the problem with sports. It's that sense of, well, like you said, carrying it with you. What did I do? What didn't I do? I'm a Miami Heat fan. We just lost the finals to the Lakers a couple days ago. We, by most accounts, weren't supposed to be there. Exactly. And so it's all how you look at this. So even as somebody who's watching it, and well, the coach could have done this or play could have this, like, no. We're like way ahead of where we were supposed to be.
Right.
And then there's actually this voice that's coming out and criticizing us. Are you kidding? We were supposed to be knocked out 2 rounds ago. And yet the critic is still like, yeah, but you see this. And to your point, when we're just watching it, just enjoying it, whatever it is. And that's the part where I've tried to explain to people, I can't explain how inspiration works, but as somebody who's written a number of books, most of them, when I go back, I really do look at them and like, wow, that's pretty good. And that's going to sound, I make sure and clarify this, and don't even let the sentence end so nobody can take this out of context. Not, wow, Wade, you're so flippin' brilliant. Like, wow, that's good. Who wrote that?
Right.
Where did that come from? And I believe there's some sort of, if you want to call it releasing your blocks, I believe that there's God. I believe there's divine influence and that sort of stuff. And I don't believe that means everything I write is accurate. But there's just something that things just kind of come together. Or again, maybe it's just that critic getting out of the way, and that feels so amazing that we say, okay, that feels like divine inspiration. And certainly maybe it is or maybe it isn't, but something in there is something magical. And to your point about being in the same job, my gosh, so many people, and this is probably one of the core things I try to remind people when they say, wait, I want this 4-day work week. Okay. I want consistent, steady income. Okay. And I want to have, these 3 days off. Okay, great. Are you prepared to be bored in your work? I don't know. What do you mean? Well, if you want consistent, steady income, you've now imposed a variable on this, because there's a little bit of fear going on here that if things changed, I might not be able to make the same amount of income. And of course, you could make more, you could make less. And there's nothing wrong with that. Part of my business model is a residual income model. But the stuff that makes you consistent, steady income is consistent, steady stuff. It's not that exciting. And no judgment. Because if you can say, wait, I've got a fulfilling enough and an awesome enough life on the 3 days or on the evenings, whatever, great. And there's not, I don't believe, at least in my experience, I've found any pattern that you have to do what you love to make a living or you don't. Some people make a good amount of money in a short period of time. They've got great perspective and they go do their stuff. So it can be done different ways. But again, what's the expectation, as you said?
Right.
If the expectation is, this is my job, I'm making money, I'm gonna go out and have fun, great. It's just that some people I find aren't enjoying their job. They're making the money maybe that they wanted, or they, like you said, that they think they should, that they should make. And I forgot about that study, the 75,000 income versus the million. How, what a big deal it is. And you have so many people over 75,000. What if I get to 100,000, 125,000? And you say, oh, here's what I'm going to do. You know what, Jeff, since I hate my job so much, I'm going to go out on the weekend. I'm going to spend so much money. Okay, wait. So you're going to keep yourself trapped in this, as opposed to what would be more logical, which would be to say, okay, I'm going to put aside, I'm going to live off of 30,000 a year. This job sucks. But you know what? I'm going to play it out for 2 to 3 years, and I'm going to get my living expenses in half, and I'm going to buy me 3 years of freedom. Okay.
Yes.
You know, very different view.
Well, what that brings up for me is I think of the book, Your Money or Your Life. I forgot who the author was on it, but she was saying where she noticed that a lot of people were not taking in consideration the cost for having a job that they hate. How much money do you spend on happy hours? How much money do you spend on your therapist? How much commuting time do you take? How much money do you spend on your outfits to look good for your job that you hate? You know, so she put in all those costs.
Wow.
And then said, how much are you actually making when you cut that down? Because like, if you're going to happy hours every other day just to deal with it, dude, that's like a $10,000, $20,000 happy hour thing possibly at the end of the year. You know, so you just have to think about that of like, what is actual success? What is actual fulfillment, right? You know, and then tying back into, I love that you talked about the Miami Heat, right? Like tying back into like just enjoying what is actually happening in the moment. They should have never gone to where they went, and they were far exceeding, you know, but they were also letting go of the result, you know, letting go and just seeing what might happen. One of the best gifts a parent can do for their kid that plays sports is to ask them about the process of the game and not the result of the game. Don't ask them what the score was at the end of the game. Don't ask them how much they scored. Don't ask them like, what did they get from it? Because like the more you ask that, the more you're supporting that results-oriented part. And you have to remember why that kid joined it in the first place. I had 2 nephews that are national Taekwondo champions, but by the end of it, they hated it. They just hated it because it was so results oriented. And if no one had been focused so much on results for them, they probably would have went for longer because they would have just enjoyed the process of it. So we also have to be careful of not just living vicariously through our kids, but also putting that pressure on them as well as putting that pressure on ourselves, right? And then this ties into the inner critic part, which is really important, especially if you're trying to move from a 5-day to a 4-day work week, is you really have to start being aware of when your inner critic pops up. And I run a whole workshop on this where I have people literally write down what their inner critic says, write down what their inner critic looks like, what it sounds like, and then I have them name their inner critic. Mine is Gargamel, so that every time Gargamel shows up, I will text my friends, or I will write an email, or I'll write it down in my journal, whatever works. But once you write down what your inner critic is saying and you look at that list, you realize like, no, I'm not a loser. No, I'm not going to ever be successful. You know, you start looking at it, you're just like, none of this is true. This is my 3rd grade self talking, or this is Chad from high school talking. Why am I listening to this person? And then once you're able to do that, you're able to let go of that noise and recognize what is dope about you. But as long as you don't address that inner critic, it's going to keep popping up and it's going to keep shaping your day. And one challenge I'd put on to your listeners is just to see, just for one day, see how much you can recognize your inner critic, because you'll be amazed how much it currently controls your day.
Wow, that's so huge. I just think of what you're saying, and I always try to tie this into something that people can put their their calculator on. So I'll first go to that part. And then, so first of all, I love the Your Money, Your Life. I forgot, I always tell people, you know, if you buy something that you didn't use, you threw away that money. But I forgot about it. If you're having to basically somewhat self-medicate or self-adjust to a job, there's literally a time cost to that. There's a money cost to that because you have to earn the money. When you talk about the Critic, I think of that. I already have mine named, and it's got an expletive in the name, so I can't say it at the moment. But because that's what I get told from this Critic. Right. And I just think of basically what it is. It's like basically that someone just says, like, does that, like, nope, you're done. You're done. Like, you're totally cut out. Oh, I got to do this now to get to refocus. Oh, love my camera. So what I've got to do is I've got to now get this thing, this thing to get back out of my way. And maybe we'll see if this resets it here. There we go. No. Oh, that was brilliant. Wait, here's, and see, he just jumps right in. Woo. So for those of y'all, we might have to edit this. I'm not sure. We'll see, but I'm going to keep going. Maybe it'll adjust. But in all of that, we'll have this situation where I'm flowing on this and I'm not in this random thought midway. But what about this obligation? What about this idea? What about this thing you have to do? And you're like, well, I didn't have to do that a while ago. Why do I have to do that now? Oh, you do. You've got to think about that. And if you don't, and just, it'd be no different than if somebody from your work came out in front of you and sat in front of you and said, I'm going to sit at your desk and just talk to you for 5 minutes about random stuff. Like Rob Schneider's guy, the copy guy making copies. That guy's just coming in and he's totally shut you down. You're like, okay, but I'm trying to get work done. He's like, no, you're not. You're done. So for those of y'all who missed, I just had to restart my video because my clever thing of putting my hand in front to say stop, it actually stopped me. So even and then my Critic that I just named,
it's just getting it. And mind you, we have to also explore, where does this inner critic come from, right? First off, our brains are designed to have a negativity bias, right? Because our brains are there to protect us. You know, the lizard brain, you've heard it so many times, you know, it's trying to protect us from the tiger. There are no tigers, but we still have this inner critic. But then in addition to that, and this is part of the reason why a lot of people feel like they don't play enough, is we have to remember that by the time we reach our teens, we have heard at least, I think it's sometimes even much higher than this, but at least 40,000 no's in your lifetime by the time you reach your teens. In addition to that, you have been should on, as I express this, by your parents, by your teachers, by any adult that's like, you should do this, you should major in this, you should do this job, you should, just putting all of their own anxiety on top of that. And then in addition to that, while you've been in school, you've been asked to ask permission to do anything. And then in addition to all that, anytime you are yourself, you're told that you're being too silly, too mischievous, or just too much, right? So we just keep hearing all of that. So no wonder we're in this position now where we're like, well, what should I do? You know, what's the right way of doing it? You're like looking for somebody to tell you what to do, when frankly, you know better than anyone else. And if these COVID times have told us anything, is most people have no idea what they're doing. None of us really know what we're doing. We're just kind of making it up as we go along, right? We're just making it up. We're just trying to navigate. And anyone that claims they know what to do during this pandemic is lying, because they weren't around in 1918. You know, they just didn't run a business in 1918. So they themselves are trying to figure it out. So don't beat yourself up that you don't have all the right answers. And frankly, instead, help yourself by first calming yourself, because a lot of times in order to play, you first have to soothe, right? You have to learn to soothe yourself. That's why you have your best ideas in the shower, or when you're walking, or doing something else that really calms you down, right? And know that you learned how to soothe yourself from the person that took care of you the most. So if they had a lot of anxiety, you're taking on that historical trauma. So you first have to learn how to calm and soothe yourself. And then what you kind of said, where you get bored. You allow yourself to get bored, which means you got to put down the social media for a little bit, stop binge watching Netflix. Guess what? I do that as well. So I hear you, but you just allow yourself for the hour or so to get bored. Because if you think about when you were a kid, your best ideas came when you were bored. You had to get that board. Also, some of your most dangerous ideas came then, but it was just, but those were the times. And then when that inner child, that inner curiosity, not critic, but curiosity comes up and is like, write that blog post, figure out how to do this 4-day work week, like run the numbers on the 4-day work week. Think about how long it'll take you to leave your job and how much money you need to take so that you can go to a 4-day work week. Follow that inner curiosity and see where that takes you. And I guarantee you, it's going to find you in a closer state to finding your flow than if you don't.
That's awesome. And one of the things you said that really, something popped up to me, you're talking about, all these people, and I've heard the concept of people shoulding on us. You should do this, you should do that. And one of the things that just became apparent to me, because I'm thinking now, rather than from the standpoint of the child, as a parent, one of the toughest things for my children, anybody's children, to grasp is, and then us, of course, as children to our parents, this is a person, if we believe our parents love us and are looking out for us, it's even tougher, because usually it's their fears. It's not that they're trying to tell us, well, you're bad, you're this. They've got these fears. Well, if you do this, this bad thing will happen. So I'm going to tell you this thing, and it's not a lie. It's their truth. It's their truth. They believe will happen. And it's, I look at this with so many things, like, how can I honor what I've been taught and given by my parents, and, keep the stuff that works or works for me or seems to be true, and let go of some of the other stuff. And sometimes it's so hard because there's a part of us that says, but my mom taught me that, or my dad taught me that. And we have to remember, okay, so at a certain age, we realize that our parents actually can make mistakes. And that's, when we're young as kids. And before that, we didn't realize that. And another point, maybe gets clouded with, they got mad at this, or I got mad at this, but ultimately they don't know everything. If they did, they'd literally, and if one of your parents is literally doing just about everything they want, they're completely happy, this, that, and the other, then maybe you are off. But most of us, and even then, we're all human. We all have our issues. And just to say, and even if they are, that's their path of what they want to be doing. And we're so concerned at times with what other people are thinking, what other people are doing, because we're thinking, well, wait, do they have it better? Am I missing out on something? This whole FOMO thing. Instead of like, no, I'm right here. And just to one more time go back on the Miami Heat thing, that's what was so joyful about watching them play basketball. And before I was a Heat fan, I was a Lakers fan, and LeBron helped us win a title. So I love AD's game, but there was something about this, like, wait, we're still here? That worked. That worked. That was just it was so hard to go for the Lakers. And I know they've worked hard and they deserve it, but just to see these guys that are like, oh my gosh, this is happening here. This is amazing. Wow. That to me is where you saw that childlikeness come out in them. Whereas when you're the favorite, people talk about this in sports all the time. Can you handle the pressure of being the favorite? Where you're expected. And if you're no lose, you're supposed to win. And, and if you win, oh, well, you're supposed to win. And if you lose, oh, well, you really screwed that up. You're like, well, how am I supposed, you've already taken the joy out of it. What about where I get to ascend to it? Nope. You're supposed to already be there. And if you mess it up, and for any of us who've done any sort of level of success, which is, chances are most of the people who are listening to this, because you're probably somebody who aspires to grow. If you're listening to a podcast like this or watching a video like this, you say, well, I aspire to grow, and I'm still going to make mistakes. And how do I deal with that? Because I have people looking up to me, and then now they're counting on me. And now I'm right back in that position of my parent. Do I be honest and say, no, I don't have all my stuff together? Gosh, such a nice truth. If we could just all say that to each other and say, no, I got this. Just do what I do. It's all going to be okay. Ding. Like, oh, come on, man. Let's stop BSing each other. It's exactly. We're outworking ourselves. We're overworking ourselves. We're over kissy facing ourselves, trying to keep up with this. And so just.
No, and what I love about that is, like, I always ask people, who are you trying to impress? Who are you trying to impress? Like, in high school, we were trying to impress the cool kids. A year later, we didn't care who they were. Like, who are you trying to impress now? Your boss? You're trying to impress, like, your neighbor? Like, if it's not someone important in your life, why are you trying to impress them? And what was so powerful and amazing about those Miami Heat, they weren't trying to impress anybody. They were just trying to impress themselves. They were just so happy of just like, yo, let's just see what else can happen. You know, oh, a rookie just scored almost 40 points. Whoa, you know, because he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just like, I'm just going to go do me. And I think that is some like the most powerful advice that I've heard from anyone is just do you. And if you don't know what that means, figure out what it means to do you. Because if there's any amazing thing you can do for your kids, you know, for all the parents that are listening, it's to show up vulnerably and pursue the things that you love so they can see you taking risks, so they can see you not knowing what you're doing, but you're figuring it out. Because kids focus more on actions than words. And if you're constantly telling them what they're supposed to do, you know, instead of doing what you want them to do, then they're not going to believe you, right? And let's, like, if you just are to simply explore what it happens if you are the lawnmower parent or the helicopter parent, right? Like, there's been a lot of studies done by NASA recently where they found that creative genius in kids is at 98% when they're 3. By the time they're like 10, it's around 40%. By the time they were in their 16, 17, it's down to 30. By the time they're adults, it's down to like 10 or less.
Wow.
And NASA's trying to hire these people. But when they hire them, then they realize they don't have the creativity. Why don't they have the creativity? Because they weren't able to fail. Their parents didn't let them fail enough. Their parents didn't let them take enough risks. You know, Randy Pausch in the last lecture, MIT professor that was dying of cancer, did his last lecture and he goes, you know what my parents allowed me to do? Write on my walls. They allowed me to explore my curiosities. Like, allow your kids to fail and then talk about the process of it and make failure not seem like the end of the world, you know, and instead just another part of the learning process, the whole fail faster, succeed sooner reality, and just see where that takes you. Because then imagine if your kid is not scared of failing anymore, then they're going to do such amazing things that you couldn't even possibly imagine if you're willing to give them the freedom to play in that way.
Absolutely. So I always ask guests to share with me a couple things that I know or they know that they could share that would be awesome. And one of the things you talked about when you and I were talking in the pre-interview was the idea that we're closer to what we want than we could imagine. We simply have to let go of our old story of ourself, of who we are or what we are to get there. Do me a favor. I'm going to qualify this. Explain that to a left brain person, if you don't mind. Because I know right now there's probably a lot of people, the people that, so right now I'm imagining that right now there's a lot of people like, okay, I get this. And then there's a group of people saying, yeah, but this still sounds kind of airy fairy.
Yeah.
How do you explain that to somebody in a more traditionally concrete way?
I would say, what does your current life look like? Right. Okay. I work 50 hours a week. All right. And why do you do what you do? Are you fulfilled? Not happy, because happy is fleeting, but are you fulfilled? Is this bring you joy for you to work this amount of time? Like, is this, well, why did you do this in the first place? And then you just start to look back. Oh, well, I got this tech job because my parents, I wanted to go into acting, or I wanted to go into this more creative aspect, but, my parents wanted me to get a real job. So I got this accounting job. And then from this accounting job, then I went to this other company, and then they told me this tech company is better. So I work for this tech company now. So let me get this straight. You've been listening to other people's advice, telling you what to do, but none of the advice that you're following is anything that you actually want to do. Then, like, that's where I would kind of backtrack and be like, what is that old story? What is the story of, like, who you were when you were in high school, or who you were and where you were in college? And do you need to be that person still? Are you able to let go of that? Because you're not going to be able to go to a 4-day work week if you're not able to let go of, like, the importance of working 50 hours a week, So you have to, like, really challenge yourself. Is this what I really want? Is this actually bringing me the fulfillment that I desire? And if it's not, then let's ask the question of, like, what are you willing to do to change that?
Yeah, and I think that's so great. There's something I love that Wayne Dyer would say he'd be talking to a doctor, and the doctor would say they didn't, they're 40 years old or 50 years old and they hate their job. And say, okay, we'll change your
Hmm.
job. So, well, I can't do that. When I
Right.
was, 19, I said I was going to be a doctor. And he says, would you go to a 19-year-old for career advice? He says, no. He says, well, you did. You went to a 19-year-old for career advice, then you want to
Right.
be a doctor, and you're unwilling to let go of this. And again, there's nothing right or wrong about being a doctor. Just if in this case, that's not what that person wants. And I just think so often with people, you just go right back to the example you just given. They're like, you've been listening to all these people and you went from sort of a fearful, okay, you've got to find a steady, secure job. Okay, understood. We sometimes do that when we're younger. And you've went to a slightly less unenjoyable job,
Hmm.
to a slightly less unenjoyable job or a different unenjoyable job. And even that, whether if you want to call it your old story or even your old pattern, has that pattern worked for you?
Yeah.
I think that's sometimes one of the most annoying things to hit you in the face. But I don't know where I got this, but somewhere I got the idea of, I guess it's off of the flip side of the insanity definition of doing the same thing, expecting different results is, dude, if I'm going to screw up, I'm going to screw up in a different way. It's going to be
Yeah.
creative. It's at least going to be like, well, that didn't work. It's going to
Yeah.
be something not necessarily epic, not necessarily that involves the police or breaking laws, but it's going to be something where I say, okay, I did A, and this next thing I did, it ain't A. It's something way different. So I've now kind of tested a range here. Not, well, I did A, and I did a slight version. I did capital A, then lowercase a, then, different font A. I did italicized A, underlined A, bold.
Right.
No, that was all A. No, I did something
Right.
completely different.
And what's interesting about that is like one of the most dangerous things for an American worker these days is comfortability, being comfortable. Because when you're comfortable, and I'm not saying comfortable like and fulfilled, I'm saying just like when someone asks you how's work and you're like, it's work. How's your life? It's meh. Like you could binge watch your life away. Like, do you want to do that? If you want to, hey, more power to you. Enjoy Netflix for the next 40 years. But if that is not going to provide you the fulfillment and happiness that you desire, the joy that you desire, um, then you have to get slightly uncomfortable. You have to start taking some risks. You have to challenge yourself to fail, frankly, and be okay with it. And it's going to really suck. When you fail, it's going to suck. Like I helped invest in a cafe. It was horrible. I lost so much money off that. And if you told me, like, you're like, Jeff, why'd you invest in a cafe? I don't know. It was a dumb idea. I get it now. But because I did that, it emboldened me to then be like, well, I can't fail any worse than that. And I started reaching out to all these companies. And now I have all these relationships with these Fortune 500 companies like the Facebooks and the Amazons, doing things I never thought possible because I was like, I was willing to sit in the failure and be like, it's not going to crush me. It's not going to crush my soul. And I think a lot of times we think that. I think of like my high school niece that when I would talk to her and she'd be like, oh my gosh, if I talk to that guy, I'm going to die. And it's just like, yeah, a part of you is going to die. The old part of you that doesn't think you can talk to guys that you're attracted to. So each of us have that part of us that we have to let die in order for us to do the next cool, amazing thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think there's so much to that. If we just look at what makes us feel alive, there's
Mm-hmm.
very few things that are guaranteed by definition. Like even when my kids would play video games and they'd start getting upset if they'd lose, it said, look, let's think this through. Think of a game like Mario Brothers. The pattern, you learn the pattern after a while, and literally it's the
Right.
exact same pattern. And then you get bored. On the other hand, you get a new version of it. Or you play a sports game, which is more just randomly organic, and you lose. Well, again, where did you want that to be? There's got to be some sort of newness, some sort of novelty in it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy it. Something else you mentioned, your inner child has all the answers, and you simply need to play long enough for your inner child to discover them. Share that, explain that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, so this kind of ties in with the Alive quote by Howard Thurman, right? Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs is for more people to come alive, right? So
Wow.
how do you come more alive? Well, my friend Lauren Yee and I came up with this Your Future's Where Your Fun Is workshop, where we actually asked people, what was the thing you loved to do as a kid? What was the thing that you were so happy about that you forgot about time? In her case, she loved to play sardines, which is reverse hide and seek. It's absolutely amazing. And the reason why she loved it, when you thought about it, she realized that it had creativity in it. It had connection. It had experimentation. It had collaboration. And we identified those as her play core values. Those are her play values. And then we looked at that and we're like, what is the work or the work you want to be doing that has the same play values? There's a lot of what you did as a kid that either ties into the work you do now or ties into the work that you should be doing. And by should, I mean should for yourself, where it's the work that will make you most excited and joyful, right? And that is the power of like when you're willing to show up, like here, perfect example. Wade is like, yo, I'm doing a 4-day work week. Well, you think you should do that, Wade? Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm just to see if it happens. And then guess what? Now I'm going to make a podcast talking about the 4-day work week. Simply by Wade showing up and now telling this story and sharing this story and showing other people that other people have the same story, that you successfully can live on 4 days of work a week, it gives permission for all these other people to show up in a way that they would otherwise never have showed up. So by you showing up, Wade, you give permission for others. And that is the ripple effect of everybody when they're willing to actually embrace the thing that makes them come alive and play more.
Absolutely. That's so awesome. And first of all, thank you for that. I mean, I forget that sometimes. I remember the 7 years I did not start my podcast. Funny how the Critic works, as opposed to the 3 years that I did. And to your point, well, a couple things. Number one, a couple more little negative thoughts or what I could have easily have this not happening right now. And, you know, I in my experience, we get second chances. We get another person says, hey, you were talking about that thing, or something lands in our lap. So it's something that keeps coming back. But definitely what loved about what you said about this play profile concept. You know, again, if you like doing these things when you were younger, for somebody, again, who kind of gets caught up in assessments or skills or needs a more left brain approach, bottom line, most of us like doing stuff we're good at. And, you know, and there's a correlation there. So if you can find the things that you like, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, you're going to be more likely to be excited about doing those things. No different than, like, let's say the sport that fits you or the musical instrument that fits you. And you're going to be more likely to get a positive feedback loop. Therefore, here's the part that's just basic, if you want to call it science or math, or just, you're going to spend more hours practicing. So It's not a magical thing. It's not like, oh, because you found your unicorn sport, now you just become this magical person. No, anybody who's at a professional level of sports has worked their tail off.
Right.
But did they get that positive feedback loop? Did it encourage them to want to do more? And of course, character, mentors, all the other variables. But when they're aligned, they're going to be much more likely to people say, wow, that's genuinely amazing what you do. And I think there's something that, gosh, it's funny you talk about your niece. You think about, and this is so weird, but think about when the stereotype of the insecure, let's say, girl or guy that criticizes another good-looking, successful, insecure girl or guy, like same gender, same, like their competition, theoretically. And then you think about the person who, that same group of people that's used to picking people apart says, oh, but this person, you just can't hate them because they're so nice. They're so this, like, it's almost like they're like mad. Like I'm so mad I can't hate you, you beast. And they'll use a different word that starts with B. I can't hate you because you're so nice. Usually that person, my experience, really is genuinely focused on their craft, because they're not like, hey, look at me, I'm beating you. It's no, I'm so here. And in fact, they're so geeking out over this and they're so into it that the other people are kind of like, whoa, they just see something I don't. And there's almost this sense of genuinely appreciation to say, wow, this person really geeks out about this.
Yeah.
And they know more than I know. In fact, they kind of know more than I want to know. But
Yeah.
wow, look what's come from that. And so I think that's something that when you see, and I see that with certain athletes, and it's not a criticism because they all work hard, but you see the ones that they're just so, again, they're playing, there's that quality. And I think not only does it draw people to them, not only does it make them more inspiring and more fun to watch, but genuinely, it's almost like you get to be part of the ride with them because you want to. You want to root with them and you want to experience. We're not sure what's going to happen next. It's the hero's journey. It's the underdog story. And yet, hopefully, we can create this where it's less of an underdog situation, where it's more of something that becomes commonplace.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing, because some people need to have it shown to them. And my guess is a lot of people at least will say, well, gosh, if Jeff's being hired by these Fortune 500 companies, maybe there's something to this. And not just once, because anybody can be hired once as a consultant.
Right.
Did you get the repeat invite? Did you come back? And I think that's so awesome that you're able to share that and give that to people, because that's the part that I think we can become so serious. And again, expectations. Well, my job's supposed to be completely fulfilling. The other extreme, it's supposed to be fulfilling and fun and awesome and no friction. And everybody works and get along with me. They're all going to like me. They're all going to compliment my shoes and my hair. It's like, well, that's just that. No, that's like a pipe dream. That's
right.
The other extreme, which then sets you right back up for, oh, see, I told you, work sucks. It's like, whoa, no, you just kind of went the other way with it. Kind of last question for you. How do you help people take a realistic approach to this that is grounded so that they're not just, oh, well, I heard this podcast with Wade and Jeff, so I've quit my job. I'm working 4 days and I'm manufacturing Lego bow ties. It's like, whoa, no. I didn't say that. I'll be the first to say, test stuff out. There's a real world variable going on here, but still get a sense of where you're going. How do you tell people that, or what do you suggest people do as far as starting? You mentioned them talking or writing down what they hear their inner critic saying, or just noticing it. What else helps people get started on this journey?
So I think there's a few different things. There's first identifying, and what Elizabeth Gilbert says, which I love, is personal transformation doesn't happen until you get tired of your own BS. So you first have to identify what is the BS you've been telling yourself. Oh, I can't start this business because I'm working so much. Mine was like, oh, I couldn't make videos. Yours, you said earlier, like, oh, I can't start this podcast. Well, finally, when we get tired of our own BS, then we're able to explore what's possible, right? So then there's the part of like identifying what you're interested in. So figuring out what your play values are, tying it into the work that you actually want to explore, right? Second is then following that inner curiosity. Where is that possibly going to lead? Well, let me explore this. Do I like to blog? Do I like to make videos? What do I want to make? Like whatever it is that you nerd out on, explore that more. I respect anyone that nerds out on something. Alan Watts says this all the time. If you're willing to do it longer than anyone else, someone is going to pay you for it because you're going to be the expert at it. That doesn't mean quit your job tomorrow, but just start experimenting with the time that you do have. Cut down on your amount of binge watching Netflix or social media scrolling, because that's not giving you the happiness that you're looking for, the connection, and just explore this a little bit more. And then in addition to this is what I ask a lot of my clients to do when they first start with me, is reach out to your friends, and you're going to ask them two questions. One question is, what value do I bring to your life? Because a lot of times you don't know. Like you don't even know what you do for them, right? And then the second question I would ask them is, when have you seen me most alive? When have you seen me most playful, most present, most happy? What am I doing? And it could be like, well, you just love to nerd out on fixing vacuum cleaners. Great, dude. That's awesome. Start exploring that. Guess what? Dyson, the Dyson vacuum cleaner guy, he worked on his vacuum cleaner technology for 6 years in his basement, making $0, while his wife, who was on a teacher's salary, basically funded them. He failed over 6,500 times before he invented the Dyson vacuum cleaner. Now he's a billionaire, right? But he nerded out on it, and he nerded out on it while he was doing other jobs as well. So like, figure out what is realistic for you, but follow that curiosity. Don't dumb it down. Don't push it down, because it's just going to keep popping up. And the question I always have for people is like, why would you spend more time listening to your inner critic than your inner superhero, right? What? And then the other part of like, at the end of life, when people talk about regrets, people talk about working too much. They talk about impressing people that they didn't want to impress. And if you think about your most enjoyable moments in your life, they're play moments. So why wouldn't you be trying to double down on finding more of those play moments? And that is what I do when I help my clients, is like, let's create more play moments that are going to give you the bravery to show up fully in this world.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, dude. All right. So people who are looking to get started, they maybe want to learn a little bit more about you. Where can they connect with you, and what does it look like for them to perhaps either work with you or even just individuals or corporations?
Sure. So you can find me at Rediscover Your Play. I make a lot of my ridiculous, stupid videos at Jeff Harry Plays, JeffHarryPlays. And if you come to the Rediscover Your Play site, let's set up a call. Let's just talk. I have like a 20-minute discovery call where we just kind of find out, where are you stuck and where do you want to go? And let's figure that out. And for companies, I like to be like, what is your biggest pain point? Let's talk about it in a discovery call, and let's see if we can solve it by using play.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, dude, this has been such a pleasure. So happy to have you out here today. I'm feeling really at home talking with you, sharing with things. This is, Jeff is has family from the Caribbean. So do I. We shared some connections there. Hopefully you've gained a lot from what he shared with you. And as always, I look forward to helping you make more money in less time, doing what you do best so you can better enjoy your family, your friends, and your life. Thanks for listening.